Rob Kampia of the MPP, the co-founder himself, gives us just a few minutes, and it is just a few minutes, but tells us a story about co-founding the MPP, and then does give us an update of what we should be thinking about in terms of various states and where they are as we speak. Enjoy. Okay, so we have the Rob Kampia. Rob, thanks so much for everything that you've done for the industry, and thanks for giving us a few minutes today.
You're quite welcome.
All right, so give it to me. The story of co-founding the MPP, how did that happen?
There were three of us who were working at the National Office of NORML in Washington, D.C., and gave us a lot of good experience with understanding how public policy works and changes on the national level. But there wasn't a sophisticated lobby on the federal level for reforming marijuana laws. And so we branched out and formed the Marijuana Policy Project in 1995. And the initial focus was to lobby Congress and have a full-time presence in the halls of Congress. We soon noticed that members of Congress were not only not interested in talking to us, but there certainly wasn't even going to be, any kind of committee hearings or votes. So we kind of then shifted into working on state-level activity. And then as we got more serious about state legislation and then eventually state ballot initiatives, we were able to build our network of funders and supporters and allies and email subscribers and supportive legislators at a more rapid pace. And then ultimately, here we are, where 23 states have legalized medical marijuana, as well as the District of Columbia, and obviously 4 states have legalized marijuana entirely. We don't take credit for all that. We've changed more than half of the state laws since 2000. And so we're quite proud of the accomplishments over the last 15 years.
We've spoken to Steve Fox and Mason DeVert, who have worked with you and gave us a little bit more in-depth on a couple of the states in the past. But in the present, tell us what we need to know. What is the Rob Kampia 20th Anniversary Edition message?
So I think it's useful to view marijuana public policy work in kind of 3 buckets. So there's state bills, state initiatives, and Congress. So with state bills, there's a lot of activity right now, both on medical marijuana and legalization. Pennsylvania is on the cusp of legalizing medical marijuana, which would make Pennsylvania the 24th medical marijuana state. That could happen very likely, in my opinion, in January, February, or March, something like that. Illinois is teetering on the edge of decriminalizing marijuana possession for any use. And then there's going to be some unlikely states that are going to get even more serious about medical marijuana legislation, like Georgia, Kentucky, Nebraska, Texas, and Utah. So, all the easy states are taken. So now we're at the next tier of the states where it seems kind of weird, but, there are very real chances that Georgia and Kentucky, for example, could pass something really juicy. And then legalization is also now a hot topic in legislatures where, in my opinion, the first 2 states to legalize marijuana through the state legislative process, as opposed to ballot initiatives. Those 2 states would be Vermont and Rhode Island. And if those happen, it would happen in the spring of 2016.
You're leaving out New Hampshire.
And then after that, the next tier of states to legalize would be New Hampshire, Delaware, Maryland, Hawaii. And those would happen, probably some of them will be 2017 and then maybe dragging into 2018. So, you're talking about a muscular docket of medical marijuana bills and a little bit of decrim and lots of legalization. So the second bucket is initiatives. And that's always the stuff that gets the most attention, but really it's only one bucket. And the ballot initiatives for legalization for November of 2016 will be Maine, Massachusetts, Nevada, California, and Arizona.
The hits.
Those are the 5, and we think we can get, we think we could win all 5. I mean, if the funding is there, all 5 will pass, but we noticed that people's eyes are bigger than their bellies, and so people say, oh, I think that California is inevitable, and I think Nevada is inevitable, and Massachusetts is liberal, that's inevitable. And that's nice for people to say that, but if you don't actually have the money to run any ads in these states, then it's inevitable that these will lose, not pass. So if
This would be a good point for me to say to donate to the MPP, I guess.
Surely. So
I mean, are you truly nervous, or?
I'm very nervous that people are getting complacent and thinking that these initiatives are just going to pass on their own, and that's not the case. I mean, the polling shows that we have a slight advantage in 4 of the states, and then California, there's even a bigger advantage than those states. But even so, you can't just run an initiative without running any advertisements. I mean, imagine running for Congress and saying, "Oh, I'm not going to run any ads to educate the voters." I mean, that would be ridiculous. So that's legalization. And then on medical marijuana, it's highly likely that the voters in Florida and Missouri will have an opportunity to vote to legalize medical marijuana also in November of 2016. And then there's also a possibility of legalization in Michigan. But all the initiatives I just listed, which are a total of 8, all that is November of 2016. And then we'll see what passes and what fails, and then we come up with a strategy for 2018 and 2020. The third of the 3 buckets is Congress, where there's now many marijuana-related bills in the House. There are 3 good marijuana bills in the Senate, and then Congress is actually voting on amendments to various spending bills. And these amendments, states' rights for medical marijuana, which is the Rohrabacher-Farr Amendment that actually is law currently, but has to be renewed every year. The amendment was voted on to prohibit the Justice Department from spending taxpayer money on any kind of interference with marijuana laws, including legalization. That failed, but barely. Then there's amendments on allowing Veterans Affairs physicians to recommend medical marijuana to vets, an amendment to fix the banking problem that the cannabis industry faces, and an amendment to fix the tax 280E problem that the industry faces. So there's 5, a couple of other more ancillary amendments. These are coming up for votes on the House floor and in a Senate committee, and each of these amendments, except for one, they're all good. And then there's a bad one, which is currently prohibiting the District of Columbia from legalizing marijuana on the local level. That's the only bad marijuana amendment.
Right.
All the other stuff is good. So there's not really a lot of energy in Congress to pass bad stuff. It's just a question of, do members of Congress care enough about reform to pass good stuff? But that's completely the opposite of the way it used to be, right?
Indeed.
In the olden days, it was all bad and nothing good.
Right. So we're in a good place, but this is no time to get complacent. Is that basically what I'm hearing?
Yeah, that's correct. Marijuana can't legalize itself. So now what does that mean? When you're talking about ballot initiatives, you could, if you're sitting in your chair, watching TV and thinking legalization is inevitable, well, how do you get a question on the ballot without paying for petitioners? So you need money. It's not just a preference. And then, of course, you have to run the campaign. And then if you want to lobby a state legislature to pass a marijuana bill, lobbyists have to pay rent or a mortgage, and they have families too. So how do you get a lobbyist to work on trying to pass a bill? You have to pay the money. So these kinds of things take money and time. And so if someone supports legalizing marijuana in the U.S., choose a team and pay for your team to change these laws. And I'm suggesting that the Marijuana Policy Project is a winning team.
I was going to say, if we were to choose the MPP, how might we go about donating if we're listening to this right now?
Our website is mpp.org or marijuanapolicy.org, and then there's a form on the site where you can donate non-tax deductible money for lobbying efforts, or if you need a tax deduction, there's also that option also. So you can donate in one of 2 ways.
Okay, excellent. Rob, thank you so much again for everything that you've done, everything that you're doing, and everything that you're about to do. How about that?
All right, thank you.
There you have it, Rob Kampia, an industry luminary, to say the least. Really appreciate Rob's time. He says it himself. We've got a lot on the slate for 2016, but it's not just ballot initiatives. So keep paying attention, and hey, if you can donate to the MPP, it sounds like, well, maybe you should.